Hello, good people. How are you? This is the New Tricks talk show. This is a show where we try to explore the new tricks because we have used the old tricks much long enough and they have not worked for us. That's why we have come up with the new tricks which we will deploy to salvage a degenerating Kenya which is destined to fail if we don't act now. Yes, today we continue with our episode. We said we are going to do part 2 of this video, whereby we were discussing about those things which doesn't work but they look like they work. Maybe those who are heading those dockets might not be doing what they're supposed to do, but in the real sense they will never work. Yes, yeah, this marks our part 2, and previously we talked about those things. We said kuna vitu mingi, tukasema kuna counties devolution haifanyi. Then we talked about health, and now we continue with several others which are ahead of us. Another thing which doesn't work and will never work, however much we'll try to make it work, Parliament, if we continue to have it the way it is structured currently. Parliament is not working, and it's not likely to work until or unless we reconstitute it to make it a workable institution to serve the main reason why it was constituted. Ideally, Parliament has 3 main functions. When I talk about Parliament, I mean the National Assembly and the Senate. This bicameral house has 2 main functions, and those functions are: first, the members of Parliament are to oversight the national executive, the judiciary, independent bodies, and every other person. It is the National Assembly and the Senate which oversights. So if things go wrong in the executive, we will lay the blame on the National Assembly and the Senate, because that is basically the role of Parliament. Another function of Parliament is to represent, like the members of Parliament represent their constituents. The people who elected them, or the electorate. That is the second function of Parliament, to represent the people in the national arena. Another function of Parliament is to legislate. Legislate means they should make laws for the prosperity of the nation. Laws which will take Kenya forward, laws which will cover the people and the institutions of the state. Those are the 3 basic roles of Parliament. So members of Parliament, that is what they are supposed to do. So as it is currently constituted, Parliament can never achieve the functions that it was made to perform. This is because, first, Parliament is too big. The institution of Parliament is too big. Parliament has elective positions of 290 members of Parliament who are elected from the constituencies. Then it has 47 women representatives represented from the respective counties. Then the same Parliament has nominated members. So you find all of them, they have the 3 functions which we have already highlighted: to legislate, oversight, and represent the people. So this means even the nominated members of parliament, they have a constituency they are representing. That's why you find there is a member of parliament who is representing the youth, others representing the people living with disabilities, and so on and so forth. So as it is currently constituted, that institution will never serve the interest that it was made to perform. So the reason why we listed this institution to be one of those institutions which looks like they work, because they are in function each and every time, but their effect is not well felt, is because of what they are doing vis-a-vis what they are supposed to do. So that's why in most cases nowadays you hear like members of parliament are being ranked by different investigative bodies like Sinovet, Ipsos Sinovet, Infotrack. So like you find seasonally they go and rank the members of parliament according to their performance. In most cases you find these people look at what the members of parliament are doing on the ground based on the CDF. Remember, CDF and maybe what the members of parliament are doing with the CDF is not one of the constitutional mandate of a member of parliament. CDF was made through a CDF Act, which was enacted by the same parliament so that they can come up with a fund, National Government Constituency Development Fund, which will maybe give them some relevancy. But if a court today nullifies that fund, then it means members of parliament are brought back to the drawing board where they should execute their constitutional mandate. In most cases, like these people who give out these rankings, they end up deceiving the public because they look at non-issues. For instance, you find they have ranked a member of parliament to be number one, and that member of parliament doesn't show up in most of the sittings of parliament. It doesn't appear in committees where oversight is done. It doesn't show up in the plenary where they discuss matters of national importance and maybe the legislation process. So you find they have they say some MP is ranked the best performing MP, but that member of parliament doesn't participate in the constitutional mandate that he was assigned to do. And maybe they look at how many schools he has tiled, how many schools he has renovated. Those are some of the things they look at, and those are not the constitutional mandate of an MP. As we have seen earlier, members of parliament should legislate. Legislation cannot be found, like you can't legislate if you are somewhere outside there, not in parliament buildings. You must be in parliament so that you can legislate. You must be in parliament so that you can represent your people when matters of your constituency or matters of other constituencies are being discussed. That's why it's called the National Assembly, because it deals with national matters. So parliament is an institution which is totally not working as it was envisaged by the constitution or by the framers of the law on how and the mandate that it should perform. So in our previous videos we have put out ways on how we can make our parliament to work. First, most people believe, or most people feel like we have a very big parliament. The National Assembly with 290 elected members of parliament from constituencies, add 47 women representatives, go ahead and add the nominated members. The Senate is also one institution which is not clearly defined on how it should perform its roles. That's why most of the time you find the National Assembly and the Senate are at tenterhooks. They have taken each other to court. They are contesting of overstepping and so on and so forth. So basically we don't need the Senate at all, so that we can have one way, like one particular way on how legislation and oversight may be done. So Parliament clearly doesn't work because it has never worked for anybody. It has never legislated anything. You find like most of the laws we have in this country, or most of the laws which are used currently, you find there are acts of parliament which was maybe done around 2012, 2013, 2014. Those are most of the acts of parliament dates back to those years. Another thing which doesn't work in this country at all is our education system. Education system is a failed system, especially the system we use in this country, Kenya. This is a system which most people don't see it the way it is, but it is a system which doesn't work anywhere in this country. For instance, I heard somebody say, whom I agree with very much, that the education system of Kenya is basically for awarding people with certificates. You are given certificates which are very useless, and the only thing you can derive out of the certificate which you are awarded is to write an application letter seeking for a job. But the kind of education which you are given in this country doesn't enable the population to be creative or to know the real issues which they are supposed to be taught in school. So they are given some information which ends up being so useless to their lives. This is what that man said in regard to the education systems of Kenya and most of African countries.
You don't go to school to study so that you can write a CV. You go to school to study so that you can solve the problems in the community. Here is the model. Before you go to school, identify the problem in the community. Then go to school, study the problem, look for possible solution, have a proposal and a business plan of how to solve this problem. When you graduate, go back into the community and solve that problem. And while you are solving problems, you have created a business and you can charge a premium for your solving the problems. But we don't have an education system like that. We have an education system that gives you a degree. And the best thing you can write after your degree, I hereby apply for a job. I'm a team worker. I work under pressure. Really? And there we end up with graduates that are not employed instead of graduates that are creating employment. Why? With almost so many engineers in Kenya, are we still having a problem with electricity? What were they doing in school? Why are we struggling with medicine when you have so many doctors and pharmacists that have come out from the bush? Who amongst all these doctors tomorrow morning will go to the bush and find msusu and make for us a tonic that cures stomach problems? No, it has not been tested. It has not been tested by who? Because our fathers have been doing this for the past thousands of years. Which part of clinical tests do you need? But anyway, if you need clinical tests, then test it and see if it would work. So the concept of education, we don't need an education that teaches us about the other. We need an education that teaches us about ourselves. It should be illegal for any student to graduate as a graduate and does not know what is underneath his feet in terms of the resources that their country is offering, the raw materials that are underneath their feet, the trees that are around them, the flora that is around us, and how all these are possible opportunities of business, economics, and development. Here is an opportunity for innovation, creating new products that are on the market, creating new drugs that are on the market. Education must educate us. How do we convert our raw materials into business and into industry? And until we get there, we'll be manufacturing fools for the employment sector.
There are some fundamental questions he raised, which I agree with so much, when he is asking real questions like, yes, we have so many engineers in this country. So many engineers, we have people who specialize in electronics, people specialize in electricity. Like, we have a problem of electricity in this country. with all this number of engineers who graduate from universities and higher learning institutions each and every time? How comes we have a very big deficit of electricity and we have engineers, several of them? Another thing he asked is about medical doctors and those people who specialize in the field of medicine. As you know, pharmaceutical products are one of those things which we import from other countries. And I said this earlier in my previous video. We have doctors who are trained in this country, but they are not trained to come up with the medicine. They are trained on how they should use the medicine. Because take for example, KEMRI, Kenya Medical Research Institute, which is basically mandated at research on medical field and come up with vaccines and other medicines which should be used to cure the population. What has this KEMRI come up with to serve this country? It's an institution which is running and a working institutions which is funded by the people. What has this institution come up with? We have a bad education system. We have an education system which does not work and which is not working, and if it's not re-looked into, it is not likely to work anytime soon. For instance, we have so many people who are trained and who are specialized on this field of engineering, civil engineering, and all those building and constructions. But how comes when we want to do a road or a bridge, we have to go to China, outsource labor, an expert who will come and work on our projects? Why? How comes? If our education system works, we are training people graduating from universities, and the best thing the government can do is maybe to generalize all of them and give them maybe a work as a construction site. Others are being exported to Arabian countries to work as house helps. How comes if our education system really works? It doesn't work. That's why we find people graduate from universities, but they can't even think. They don't think clearly. They can't think straight. They can't think progressively. So our education system is one area where we should really look into and address or come up with an education system which will work for the people. Let people be innovative. What kind of info are you giving these people in the name of education? Have you ever imagined, take a minute, look around where you are and tell me 2 things which are made in Kenya? Most of the things which are surrounding us, wherever we are, we are in our homes, we are on our roads, wherever we are, most of the things which are around us are imported, are made from somewhere else, most of which are made from China. Why? And we don't have a deficit of educated people. We don't have a deficit of educated people with certificates, graduates. What is this? So, education system in Kenya doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. Maybe it works for some people, but it doesn't work at all in this country. It is very clear that we even don't trust ourselves. Kenya is the country whereby people are trained, they read a lot of theory from Google, from the books, and all those things. We are so messed up in this field of education, and until we relook and start addressing the problems, it seems that we have a long way to go. It's only in Kenya where you find people who are trained in the field of agriculture. They are trained in some city at 8th floor. That's where their school is. That's where they go each and every morning, study and go home. Then they wait to go to the graduate, be given their degree, and they go home and expect miracles to happen so that those people can sort the problems in the field of agriculture. It is not possible until we change our policies on education. Definitely we have a long way to go. Let us address our education. In most cases, you find engineers are taught how they should deal with a situation. For instance, when a car stops, then you call an engineer, somebody who call himself an engineer or a mechanic, to go and address the problem. Like, we are given education which enables us to repair, but not to come up with new products. For instance, you go to class, you are being taught electronics, you are told this is an integrated circuit, this is a diode, this is a capacitor, this is what. But they will never tell you how that capacitor is made, how to come up with a capacitor from scratch, which materials are assembled to come up with a diode. They don't tell you that. They will tell you how you will use it, because that is exactly what those people want us to know. In China, you find like most people, like the young people who are done with their secondary education, most of them are very busy in companies assembling phones. Can you imagine the number of China phones which are circulating across the world? There are so many. How comes that most of the phones which are used in the world come from China? Can you imagine one country supplying phones almost to all parts of the world? That's a very big job for their people. You find like people who have not even graduated, they are trained in a particular field and they have specialized. Like when they finish their secondary school, they are in some companies assembling phones, assembling laptops, and all those things. They make even robots. That's why, like the other day, I heard that most people don't like things, mostly the machines which come from China. They prefer the machines from Japan. But do you know the robots which make the machines in Japan are made from China? How is that? Like Chinese, even the very small kids, you find like those very small toddlers who have started schooling, they go, then they are given tasks to do, then they start training them in a particular field. Like, look at this video here, down here.
Do you know what Chinese kindergartens are like? While kids in other kindergartens eat, sleep, and play games, kids in this Chinese kindergarten do laundry and cook, learning self-reliance. They have outdoor stoves proportionate to their height, and they make their own meals every day, from washing and chopping vegetables to cooking. They eat their own cooked meals with such gusto you'd think they're licking the plates clean. After eating, they voluntarily clean up and even line up to wash dishes. The principal assigns tasks based on the kids' interests to foster their hands-on skills. They start working right after meals, making baskets or knitting scarves for themselves and even using sewing machines to make clothes. They embroider, weave mats, and even make their beds. They're taught independence from a young age. The older kids can cook a meal from scratch, and the younger ones are adept at kneading dough and making pancakes, making chefs jealous. They even squeeze their own milk and make juice from scratch. From washing and cutting fruit to the final product, they do it all themselves, with teachers offering guidance. After eating and drinking, they get busy with various activities like embroidery, building walls with mud, making puzzles, drawing, and making decorations. The girls can even practice makeup and hairstyling, becoming professional hairstylists upon graduation. They never skip school because there's just too much to do. Some netizens say this is real hands-on education, unlike other kindergartens where teachers worry about kids getting hurt. Here, they face challenges head-on, with special forces-style training, jumping rope while playing basketball, climbing ropes, and building giant Ferris wheels. They learn to ride balance bikes and practice martial arts. There's no crying when dropping kids off, they run straight to class. Fighting over toys? Non-existent. Everyone's too busy with their own tasks to bother with that. This is what childhood memories should be like. If it were your child, would you choose this kind of kindergarten?
That is exactly how education is done. And that's how people are trained in the field of education, so that they are equipped with skills. When they are done with their education from schools, they go out, apply them to earn a living and to solve a problem in the society. But in this country, you find those small children go to school, the playgroup children, they are taken to school, they play the whole day, then they get tired, then they are taken to sleep. Then they will be taken home when the time comes in the evening. Education system of this country is totally not working, and until we sit down and draft something which works for us, we will remain there. We'll be just there doing a lot of nothing. You know, until the government comes up with the right policies, and that institution, the KICD, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, comes up with the right curriculum for this country is going to degenerate. This is because we have so many people graduating from schools, they have nowhere to be absorbed. That is the biggest problem of this country. We are going to train so many of them if we continue this way, and until we look for a way on how we can accommodate them and give them a living, then the same people will cause chaos and destroy their country, because they feel like they have gone to school, they have studied, but they are not getting the job